All right, so good evening and welcome everyone. So the very beginning is very important that we adjust our motivation, and the best motivation that we could have is to be influenced by bodhicitta. When we recite the verse for refuge and bodhicitta, we say, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So here the Buddha, we should recognize him as the teacher who teaches us. The Dharma really refers to the truth of cessation and the truth of the path. But also we can look at the texts as being the Dharma in the sense that they are a representation of the actual Dharma. And then we have the go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma. We translate it as the Sangha, but actually the Tibetan says the assembly, the supreme assembly. And this refers to the Sangha. And the reason why it uses the word assembly there is because once you have an assembly of four members of the Sangha, this acts as the representatives of the actual Sangha. The actual Sangha consists of Arya Bodhisattvas. So we say that we go for refuge to these three jewels, three objects of refuge, until I'm enlightened. So when you say those words, they have to come sincerely from the bottom of your heart. The second part of the verse, it says, through the merit of practicing generosity and the other perfections, may I reach the state of enlightenment to benefit all mother sentient beings. So by practicing the six perfections, and here we have the example of generosity, or by establishing any virtue, what we do is we accumulate merit. And therefore, we say that through the force, through the power of this merit, may I reach a state of enlightenment so that I will be able to lead all sentient beings to that state of enlightenment. So with this understanding, let's recite Refuge, Bodhicitta, Ganden Lagema to adjust the motivation. We come now to the next one, 11. 11 is non-violence, or you could say it's non-cruelty. So the opposite of this is violence, is cruelty, is causing harm to others. So non-violence or non-cruelty actually comes to have the same meaning with compassion. So for us Buddhists, this is a very important concept, a very important mental factor. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama often speaks about the Buddhist conduct. And he says the Buddhist conduct is a conduct of non-cruelty. So this comes to have the same meaning as having a conduct of compassion. So this non-violence or non-cruelty is very important. It is actually focusing on suffering sentient beings and has the wish that they be free from suffering. So as you can see, it has the same meaning as compassion. So it is this abandoning this violence or abandoning this cruelty towards sentient beings is really the essence of all the Buddha's teachings. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama often gives the advice and says, if you can help and benefit someone else, then by all means do it. But even if you cannot help them, at least you should abstain from harming them or being cruel towards them.
Nice.
All right. So it's a very, as we say, this non-violence or non-cruelty towards others is a very important practice, is a very important concept. And it's important to see what is prescribed for the ordained. So for the ordained to cause harm to others, it becomes one of the practices that really must be avoided. We know that for the ordained, there are 4 dharmas, so 4 things that they have to practice, no matter how difficult it is, even at the cost of their lives. And that thing is not retaliating in 4 situations. The first of those situations is when someone is scolding you. So if someone is scolding you, you do not scold back. The second one, if when someone is talking to you with abusive language, you do not respond with abusive language. The third one is when someone is openly proclaiming your faults and mistakes, you do not also talk about their mistakes. And the fourth one is when someone is hitting you, so physically beating you, giving you a beating, that you do not retaliate by also physically hitting that person. So it is says that even at the cost of my life, I have to practice. It actually comes, it says a verse in Lama Chopa within the context of practice of patience. So even at the cost of my life, I will not retaliate. So for the ordained, what the Buddha has said is, as a practice of non-violence, is that when the ordained drink water, they should always use a strain. The reason why they should strain the water. In this way, they filter the water. And the reason why they do this is because within the water, we have different insects or other organisms, other creatures who live in the water. So if you want to drink the water, you have to strain it first. And in this way, you do not swallow or you do not harm those insects. So you can pick up the insects and then remove them from the water in a harmless manner, isn't it? Although these four occasions in which the ordained should not retaliate were given as a specific practice for the ordained, Geshe was saying, actually, these are very good practices for all of us to implement. So, for the lay, for the ordained, on any occasion, it's very good to observe. Okay, so we have completed this list, this group of 11 virtuous mental factors. So one might come up with the doubt or the question saying, so if it is virtue, does it have to be included within this list of 11? Meaning, is there no other virtue that is not mentioned in this list of 11? And the answer to that is that, yes, of course, there's many more virtuous mental factors or instances of virtue that are not mentioned here. Here we have a list of 11. It's not an exhaustive list, but it is listing the main ones. So, since we're talking about virtue and we say that this list of 11 is not exhaustive, does not include everything, we need to understand that in terms of imputation, we have 5 types or 5 categories of virtue. So the first one is virtue by nature. The second one is virtue by association. The third one is following virtue. The fourth one is arising virtue. And the fifth one is ultimate virtue. So as we said, some of those are imputed, some of them are virtue through and through, as we say. So these 11 that we gave here, they all belong into the first category, which is virtue by nature. Virtue by nature means that just by practicing that thing, it is virtue, meaning you do not need to have a specific motivation. Sometimes with certain activities, if the motivation is right, the activity will become virtuous. But if you don't have the right motivation, the activity does not become virtuous. So with the list of those 11, they are by nature virtues, meaning you do it and that thing is virtue, that minute. Okay, we come to the second category of those 5 types of virtue, which is associated or connected virtue. So we have given the list of 11, starting with faith and so forth, the 11 virtuous mental factors, right? So together with those mental factors, we're going to have other mental factors and main minds that are concordant. They are concordant in 5 aspects. So all of them, they're kind of like the satellites, or, they are around, or they are connected. They are related to those 11 virtuous mental factors, all right? So any other mind or any other mental factor that is concomitant in 5 aspects with these 11 falls in the second category, the related virtue. The third category is called following virtue. All right, so following virtue here really refers to imprints. You know how we talk about imprints of virtue or non-imprints of negativity and so forth. Okay, so what we describe here is that, let's say you engage one of the 11 mental factors, right? So this is, and you act, right? So this will bring some result in the future. So what you have is you create the possibility, the ability to bring about a positive result. So the imprint is this possibility, this capacity to bring that future result, all right? So this is something that follows after virtue. So this is what we say, it is following virtue. So it refers to imprints. Number 4 is called rising virtue. So rising here is an indication of what gives rise to special virtuous activities of body and speech. So what gives rise is the motivation, all right? So with a virtuous motivation, right? For example, you engage in a virtuous physical activity such as prostration, or through a virtuous motivation, you express yourself. So you engage in verbal activities in a positive manner. All right. So this is the arising virtue. It arises from a particular motivation. We come to the last one, the 5th one, ultimate virtue. So the term ultimate here refers to emptiness. So this is not really virtue, but it is imputed virtue. So what we mean by this, if you meditate focusing on emptiness, this has the power to purify negativity, isn't it? So it can lessen the negativity, it can remove negativity, it can even totally eliminate negativity. So because it has this effect, it is imputed as being virtue. Emptiness itself is not virtue, right? But if you meditate on emptiness, it has a purifying effect. So it is imputed, it is given the name virtue, ultimate virtue. All right, we also have other ways of describing virtue. So we have virtue obtained through birth, and also we have derived virtue. So what is the first case? Virtue derived through birth. It means in your previous life, you have practiced virtue a lot, so you are very familiar, very much associated with virtue. So when you come into this life, you establish virtue very easily without needing to, almost automatically. It's like a maturational result of what you have created in your previous life. So you don't need to put effort into it. Whilst in the second case, we talk about derived virtue. Derived here means derived from effort. So, for example, we establish virtue through prostrating, but it takes effort to prostrate, isn't it? Or, for example, we can derive virtue from accumulating mantras. It takes effort to accumulate that number of mantras. So you can have it through birth, or it can be derived. We have another type of virtue is called the benefiting virtue. So benefiting virtue actually refers to any activity that can benefit others. So, for example, we say that we practice the 6 perfections in order to benefit our own self, our own mind stream, and we practice the 4 means of gathering disciples in order to benefit others. So, all of those activities that are involved in this fall in the category of benefiting virtue. So since we mentioned here the 4 means of gathering disciples, you can see how these are activities that benefit others. So if you want to teach and give advice, what you need to do is you need to bring these people closer to you. And the first way of the first means of doing this is by giving gifts. All right. In this world, everybody likes to receive something. If you give something, people turn, or, even an animal, even a dog or a cat, if you give them a little treat, they will come near, isn't it? So certainly this also works with other human beings. If you give them something, you give them a little present, they turn towards you, they come closer to you. So once they come closer to you, now you can start giving them some advice. So the second step is to speak with pleasant words. Pleasant words here means that you are teaching, you're giving them advice, you're giving them instructions that is in accordance with the way that they are thinking, something that suits their mentality. And the other thing, the next thing that you have to do is to act accordingly, right? So whatever you teach, whatever you tell them that it is good to do, you yourself have to practice that. If you don't practice it, why should they practice it? Why should they engage this practice? But if you teach it and you practice it yourself, then the chances are that they will also follow. And they will also practice along with you. So you can see all of these are activities that are done to benefit others. So to give you, there are many stories of how these 4 means of gathering disciples actually work. They're very efficient. So we mentioned the first one is that you're giving gifts, right, to make people come to you. There is this story of this Lama who was up in the mountain. And when we say up in the mountain, like if you wanted to go and meet this Lama, it was very hard. You really had to climb the mountain. He was in a very isolated location. So there was this person who needed to request the Lama to do some prayers. And this person sent the servant up in the mountain. He says, you go up in the mountain and find the Lama in the hermitage and tell them this and this happened and we need prayers. Okay, so the servant started climbing the mountain, but as we say, it was a fair distance going up. So as he was going, the further he was going, the more tired he was becoming. And the more tired he was becoming very irritable. So he was climbing the mountain and he started more or less cursing the Lama. It's like, what sort of Lama is this? Why does he have to live at the top of the mountain? Why does he have to be so far away? Why can't he live amongst the people? Why does he live like a wild animal amongst the animals in the forest, up at the top of the mountain? So the whole distance, the more tired he was getting, the more verbal he was becoming. Anyway, he arrived at the top and he found the Lama. And the Lama called him in. And of course, the Lama realized that this person was tired and irritated. So he said, come here, sit down. And he poured him tea and he gave him tsog. And the tea was delicious and the tsog was delicious. And that person just drank the tea and ate the treats and the biscuit and whatever, and forgot all about his tiredness. He forgot all about the criticism to this Lama. He was so satisfied with what he received. On his way down from the mountain, he was praising the Lama. But what an excellent Lama. What a wonderful, being. He gives the best tea. He gives the best biscuits, the best song. An excellent Lama. So on his way down, having received those treats, he had developed faith for the Lama, right? There's another type of virtue that is called the thoroughly assuming or thoroughly grasping. All right. So this is a virtue that you do, that then you gather or you grasp, you hold this virtue, and it will give you rebirth as a god or a human, or it will lead to the result of liberation and omniscience. Also, there are many different types and names of virtue. Another one that we can mention here is, again, imputed virtue, and it is applied to the truth of cessation. So the truth of cessation is also imputed, and it is called virtue, although it is not virtue. So it is called the virtue of thorough pacification. The reason for that is because you have actually, when you obtain cessation, what you have is you have abandoned afflictions. Once you abandon the afflictions, you obtain the cessation of these afflictions. So because you have that cessation, you have thoroughly purified the affliction. This is imputed as virtue. So as you can see, today we have given a list of different types of virtue. So outside the list of the 11 virtues mental factor, we have given many other types of virtues. And this list that we have given is a list that is created without differentiating what is actual virtue and what is nominated as virtue. Okay, so remember that we started by giving a list of 5 types of virtue. So those 5 also exist for the opposite, for non-virtue. So we had natural virtue, we can have natural non-virtue. We had associated, or we had related virtue, we can have related non-virtue. We had following virtue, we can have following non-virtue. We have arising virtue or motivated virtue. We can have motivated non-virtue. And finally, we had ultimate virtue. We can have ultimate non-virtue. Okay, so for the first one, naturally non-virtuous activities. What does this refer to? So we finished the 11 virtues once, and then we're going to go into the group of 6 root afflictions and 20 secondary afflictions. So these things are naturally non-virtuous. So you do that thing and it is naturally non-virtuous. So as we say, we have some activities that are naturally non-virtuous. And I think one we can all recognize is killing. Killing is non-virtuous, full stop. We don't make a distinction of who did you kill. Did you kill this one? If you kill this one, maybe it's not as non-virtuous, or maybe it's neutral. There's no such differentiation, right? Killing is naturally non-virtuous. We have other types of negativities that are prescribed. They come from breaking some rules, right? So, for example, there are certain rules for the ordained. They don't apply to the lay people. But if an ordained person transgresses those rules, it becomes negativity of breaking the rule. However, if a lay person behaves in the same way, because the rule does not apply to the lay, the lay person, it does not become this type of negativity. But killing, it doesn't matter who kills, and it doesn't matter who you're killing is always naturally negative. So here we mention this term, the natural negativity, and we have a term in Tibetan that is a different term from the usual word for negativity or affliction or something like this. Sometimes it is translated as misdeed. All right. So in terms of the Tibetan term is kanamatoa. Kanamatoa indicates that if you will not reach a high state, all right? So you have a particular goal, or you want to progress along the path, or you want to reach the state of liberation, or you want to reach the state of Buddhahood, right? You want to go up, you want to progress upwards, right? But if you behave in this particular way, you're not going upwards, right? So if you engage in this misbehavior, if you misbehave, you engage in negativity, then you're not going upwards, right? Actually, you're going downwards. Okay. So in terms of this misbehavior, we have two types. We have natural misbehavior, and we have misbehavior that comes from breaking an order. Okay, so the natural misbehavior is natural negativity. It means whoever does it, whether it is a lay person, whether it is an ordained person, whoever does it under any circumstances, this is negative behavior. This is misbehavior. Okay, then we have the other one that is prescribed. It comes because negativity, becomes negativity because you break a rule that is prescribed by the Buddha. So the Buddha has given certain rules for the ordained. To give you an example, drinking alcohol, right? So for the lay people, there is no rule that says you shouldn't drink alcohol. Actually, you can drink alcohol, and this is not negative. The negativity could begin once you become intoxicated and you become totally careless, right? Once you lose control and you become careless, then you might engage in a lot of negative activities. But if you drink without becoming intoxicated as a lay person, there's no negativity in this. However, if we examine the same thing, drinking alcohol for the ordained is 100% prohibited by the Buddha. The Buddha has said the ordained will not drink at all under any circumstances. Why? Because the Buddha was very skillful, and the Buddha could see that drinking actually leads to negative behavior. So for the ordained is out of the question. Under any circumstances, there will be no drinking. Okay. So for the ordained person to drink, they are breaking a prescribed law. So they're going against the rules. For the lay person, they can drink until, as far as they don't become intoxicated. Okay. So that's the difference. I can see you all tomorrow heading for the pub saying Geshe said there's no problem if the lay people can drink. We can all go out for drinking night. It's not like this. So be very careful about this. For just by drinking, there is no negativity if you just drink. But Geshe says, I want you to observe people who make drinking their habit, right? It's not a good thing, because then all sorts of other behavior comes in. All right. Okay, so very careful. This was not like you don't have Geshe's blessings to go drinking. So Geshe was saying there is one thing here. When you listen to the Dharma and the Lama gives some advice like this about drinking, right? always take it that, oh, he's talking about me. He's talking to me. This is personal advice. Many times we listen and we say, oh, I bet he's talking about this person or that person. What he's saying is not about me, it's about them, right? So you go into the teachings and you think he's talking about everybody else but me. Actually, it should be the opposite. He's talking, everything he says is about me. Even if you're not drinking, right? Even if you're not a drinker, you should think, he's telling me to be careful in the future, right? That I should not give an opportunity for this habit of drinking, to develop drinking habit, because there are many faults that come from that. Even though I'm not drinking now, he's giving me caution about the future. So it's all about me personally. Okay, the second category was related non-virtue. So we will come into the list of the 6 root and the 20 secondary afflictions, and then any other mental factors or main minds that are concomitant with them in 5 aspects are related non-virtue. The next one is following non-virtue, and following non-virtue are the imprints that follow after doing a negative action. So let's say you kill. Once you kill, you create some imprints that come from this killing that will affect you. So for example, you can have imprints to take rebirth in the hell realm, imprints to take rebirth as an animal, and so forth. So imprints of non-virtue are called following non-virtue. Okay, the next one is rising non-virtue. So rising non-virtue refers to non-virtuous physical and verbal actions that come by being motivated by afflictions. And basically it is the 3 poisons. So motivated by 3 poisons, some negative, non-virtuous physical and verbal activities will arise. These are the rising non-virtues. Okay, so the last one is ultimate non-virtue, and ultimate non-virtue here refers to samsara and everything that is included within samsara. Actually, all of those things, samsara and samsaric things, are things that make the Aryas generate aversion. They look at those things and they turn away from them, which is the exact opposite reaction that we have. We look at samsara and samsaric situations, and instead of having aversion, wanting to move away from them, we have the opposite. We have great attraction. So, for example, samsaric things, gold, silver, luxuries, something that looks beautiful and entertaining, immediately we are attracted to those things, like a nice park, or a new restaurant, or, an expensive house or something like this. Immediately we want to go there. We must visit. We have to go there. So we have attraction to those things. It's good to be aware that we have the exact opposite reaction to the Aryas. So the thing Geshe says is that if you take all this into consideration, you will see that we are wrong. We are wrong in everything we do, the way we think, the way we act, the way we move. Everything we do is absolutely wrong. It's mistaken. Actually, we are seeking happiness, but we are so mistaken in terms of finding this happiness that we will never find it. Because you see, the things that cause the holy beings or the Arya beings to have aversion almost are the very things that we find so attractive. We find these things irresistible. So Geshe was saying is on one hand, to find all those things irresistible and being so attracted to them, and every movement that you do is geared towards getting closer to those things, and at the same time say, I am seeking liberation, I am seeking the state of enlightenment, is wrong. It is wrong because you can never achieve it. You cannot achieve it if on one hand you are attracted and chasing and running after all those samsaric pleasures and luxuries and things, and at the same time you say, oh yeah, but I want liberation. Oh, I'm seeking liberation, right? It is wrong. And everybody who says that is wrong. So Geshe was saying, I can see my name in the newspaper. The police will come and arrest me. Geshe teaches everyone is wrong. Okay, so the thing is that we often use this expression. We talk about samsara, you know, I'm in samsara, we are in samsara, and so forth. And Geshe says, I think quite often people do not fully understand what we mean by the term samsara. And a lot of people think that samsara refers to the environment, to the abode. So, you know, we have the mountains, we have the valleys, we have the streets, we have the cities, you know, we have the flowers that grow, and so on and so forth. And people look at all this and they say, oh, this is samsara. Actually, the texts, when they explain what samsara is, they say samsara is the contaminated, appropriated aggregates, right? So the other things that we see around us are samsaric locations. They are samsaric abode. But the location, the samsaric location, is different from samsara itself. Samsara itself is the appropriated, contaminated aggregates. So how did we appropriate it? How did we take these aggregates? Due to the power of karma and afflictions, without any freedom, we have ended up with these aggregates. And what is the meaning of samsara, which means cycle, cyclic existence? What is the cycle? The cycle is that we go from one set of contaminated aggregates to the next set of contaminated aggregates. So now you have the human aggregates, and the next thing you have the dog aggregates, and the next thing you get the god aggregates, and the next thing you get the pig aggregates, and so on and so forth. So we cycle, or we move from one set of contaminated, appropriated aggregates to the next one. So aggregates refer to the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, discrimination, compositional factor, and consciousness. These things that we find ourselves in, this is samsara. So Geshe was saying, if you don't really understand what is samsara, and you think samsara is the external location, how are you ever going to obtain liberation from samsara if you don't know what the thing is? And often people have this simplified idea that, whatever, someone is getting married, right? And the person who is getting married, they leave their family and they go into the new household, right? That they are cycling in samsara, while someone is ordained, and the one who is ordained has left samsara behind. So no, it's not like that. We are, that's a misconception, actually. We are samsaric beings, and what we do is we cycle, sometimes high, sometimes low, sometimes high, sometimes low, into different sets of aggregates. Okay, so we talk about samsara, or cyclic existence. So what it means is that we take rebirth, and we take rebirth in this set of aggregates because we have this type of aggregates projected by karma and affliction. This is the aggregates that we have. This is the result of karma and affliction, right? So these aggregates, from the moment we establish them, we establish suffering. There will be the aggregate of feeling that will experience sickness and heat and cold and fatigue and all of those things, isn't it? From the moment we are born, suffering begins because of the type of body, the type of aggregates that we have. So we will experience sickness and pain, hunger. We need food. This is why we actually have bodies that have stomachs, right? Because we need food. And to get that food, we have to work really hard, right? So everything is difficult. Everything is hard work. Why? Because we have these type of aggregates. So if we could escape, avoid having to take rebirth in a type of aggregate, in a set of aggregates that is established by karma and afflictions, then we would obtain liberation. Liberation because we will not have to have all this suffering. That's the meaning. All right, we elaborated. We've come to the end of the session tonight.